Good afternoon, class. We're going to talk today about the two learning theories that we focused on this week during school. We're going to talk about the cognitive development theory as well as the zone of proximal development. Now, when we look at the cognitive development theory, it's good to understand that the first person that came up with this concept was Piaget in 1936. The theory of cognitive development explains how children construct mental models of the world around them. Now, we're taking objects that they see in their lives that aren't always the same depending on where they're from or who they interact with, but thinking of the subjects, the objects, and sometimes the experiences they have in their lives and how they're able to relate it into their learning process. Piaget disagreed that intelligence was a fixed trait and argued that knowledge is acquired over a period of time, and the experiences that we have adds to the knowledge that we have. This is also described as genetic epistemology. When we break up the word genetic epistemology, we need to understand that genetics is known as the origins of thinking. Genetics focuses on the study of where things come from and how they interact in our lives and the experiences that we have that are unique in our own. Epistemology focuses on the categories of thinking, that structural framework, and the additional aspects of intelligence. So we're taking the origins of objects that we've come into contact in our lives and we're relating it into a structural framework so we're able to develop our own unique intelligence. Cognitive development is regarded as a process which occurs due to biological maturation and interaction with the environment. So we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but the concept that the things that we interact with in our environments are unique in their own, and they help add to our learning experience and the knowledge that we acquire over our lives. Piaget was not concerned with the measurements or as well as how students count, spell, or solve problems, and was not concerned with the grading process or IQs, but he was more interested in the fundamental concepts and how they were able to relate the ideas of numbers, time, quantity, and justices into their learning process. Again, not focusing on if they did well on a test. We're focusing more on if they're understanding the fundamental concepts related to the experience that they have in their lives. Piaget was the first psychologist to make a systematic study of cognitive development. This is broken up into 3 steps. The first one is the stage of child cognitive development, where we're evaluating which stage they are in their development process. Then we relate it to the observational studies of cognition in children, where we're observing their cognitive ability in each of the stages. And then finally, we're looking at a series of simple tests that help us reveal different cognitive abilities for each of the students. Now, what we need to do is we need to differentiate Piaget's theories, and this can be broken up into that the theory focuses specifically on children rather than learners, and the goal of this is to explain the mechanism and the processes that infants and children go through in the development process, which is unique only to them and not to a wider, broad audience of learners. It focuses on development rather than learning. The theory does not address learning information for specific behaviors, so this is a way of more or less broadening the horizon of how each of our learners fits into each of the stages of development. And the way that works is then we're able to look at the qualitative differences rather than the gradual increase in a number of complex behaviors, concepts, and ideas. So by looking at this, whether then they're doing well in a test, we're looking at their overall cognition as a student and how they have developed over the course of their unique individual life. Another thing what we're looking at when we're differentiating Piaget's theory are the aspects of cognitive development theory. This is then broken up into the 3 categories: schemas, adaptation processes, and stages of cognitive development. When we focus on schemas are the basic building blocks in cognitive models, and they enable us to form mental representations of the world around us. So, over our lives, that we're taking these units of knowledge that we acquire, also known as schemas, and how we relate them to the other aspects of our cognitive learning. These are also ways of us organizing knowledge, and they think of schemas as units, and each of these relates to a specific aspect of the world. These include objects, actions, or concepts that we've developed over our unique personal experiences. And then the storage of these mental representations are things that we can apply in different areas of our lives when needed. The adaptation processes breaks up into assimilation, accommodation, and equilibration. Assimilation is using existing schemas, so previous knowledge that we have already acquired, to deal with a new object or a situation. So when we take previously acquired knowledge and how we apply it to overcome adversity or obstacles that are put in front of us. Accommodation is when existing knowledge that we have does not work and it needs to be changed to deal with a new object or situation. So when we take previous knowledge and it no longer fits how to solve a specific issue, we need to start developing new schema so we can then fix this issue. Equilibration are events which moves development along, and not always at a steady rate, but rather in leaps and bounds. So this can be an example of students that all learn in different areas in their lives and the experience that they have and how the knowledge that they acquire can help them make leaps and bounds in their learning, but it's not always unique and it's not always steady, and each student has their own unique learning experience. To relate this to current knowledge and acquiring information, we need to look at the stages of cognitive development. This is broken up from the age of birth all the way into adulthood. The first one that we break into is the sensory motor stage of the birth, from the age of birth to 2 years old. This is achieved when they are able to take object permanence, which is the idea of I have an object in front of me, and when I remove this from a child's sight, how they're able to still be able to understand that that object still exists, whether it's in front of them currently at that moment or not. This is a mental representation of a schema or knowledge of an object that is no longer in front of them and how it fits into their current world. And the next part is pre-operational stage. This is from the ages of 2 to 7, where children are able to make symbolic understanding of a schema or knowledge, and how that one word stands for one thing specifically, and how it's unique in that they can relate that one thing, where sometimes in infants, they have a difficult concept of relating a certain symbolic image and then taking that viewpoint away from others. The next one we focus on is the concrete operational stage. This is from 7 to 11, and this marks the beginning of the operational thought, where children can work things out internally in their head, opposed to having to physically sort out the issue for themselves in person. So this is where they can mentally process how things work and why things work a certain way, opposed to having to physically pick up objects and move them around and try sorting them in a certain way to solve that problem. The final stage, which is from former operational stage, is from 11 to adolescence and adult. This typically begins at 11 years old and goes through adulthood, and during this time people are able to take the ability of taking abstract concepts and making their own logical tests and hypotheses for themselves, opposed to having somebody test them for themselves. They're able to find answers to these obstacles for themselves, opposed to having someone else do it for them. Now we break up this entire thing. We need to look at the concepts of discovery and learning. Now the concepts of discovery and learning teaches us that the concepts that children learn best through doing and actively exploring. This is viewed as essential to the transformation of the primary school curriculum that we have today. By them performing the skills and doing it for themselves, they're able to acquire the knowledge more efficiently and able to solidify that understanding of concepts cognitively through their own personal experiences and attempting the skills themselves. The next learning theory we're going to discuss is the zone of proximal development. When we look at the zone of proximal development, the definition for this is the distance between the actual development level as determined by the independent problem-solving person, and then the level of potential development as determined through solving under adult guidance or collaboration with a peer. So we're focusing on the current learner's ability to do skills independently versus how they can be in the zone of development when they have that additional assistance. This learning theory was first termed by Lev Vygotsky. Vygotsky viewed interaction with peers as an effective way of developing skill strategies. He also defined teachers as that adult guidance for peer collaboration for the problem. When we look deeper into Vygotsky's theories, the line of natural regression was the part of the process of removing the assistance from the assistants, also known as the teacher, who helps boost the learning for the student, and how this learning is still occurring, but not quite as comfortable. The students aren't quite as comfortable with the skills, and sometimes the learning takes a little bit longer as opposed to having that additional help. Another concept that he discussed was the cultural tools. These are the tools that assist learning that are unique to a specific culture. For example, in the United States, we have textbooks, YouTube, television, and the internet, and how all of these cultural tools are unique on our own, but they all can assist in our guidance in how we learn new knowledge. Vygotsky also talked about scaffolding, which I like to term the guided learning. Or not termed by Vygotsky, this is termed by Wood. He never directly said it, he associated it, but never truly said scaffolding. Wood associated scaffolding as elements that task for the initial learner's capacity, and they help permit the student to be able to concentrate upon certain skills. But when we remove the scaffolding, we're removing that guided assistance from their learning. Another way that students are able to learn and they're able to be assisted in the learning process is having a more knowledgeable other. So this could be another student that already has previous experience with the knowledge and how they're able to apply this knowledge that they have from their previous experiences into the learning experience. That more knowledgeable person is able to assist their peers so that they can both come together, collaborate, and achieve a goal. This can also sometimes be another educator who has previous experience of the skill, and that their personal experience can help the students achieve the specific goals. Now that we've talked about scaffolding, we're going to look at ways that scaffolding is effective and effective scaffolding. These are the processes related to effective scaffolding. We're gaining and maintaining the learner's interest in the task, making the task simple, emphasizing certain aspects that will help the solution, controlling the child's level of frustration, and demonstrating the task. By using all of these methods that have been deemed effective and related to the scaffolding process, we're able to guide learners through these directions, and we're able to use each of these main concepts as our level of guidance as educators to relate it to the students' learning and how we can focus on these specific tasks to guide the students' learning in any specific task. Final aspect of zone proximal development is the knowledge through social interactions. This breaks up into reciprocal teaching and collaborative learning. When we look at reciprocal teaching, the teachers and students collaborate in the learning and practice, and these 4 skills are included. It's summarizing, questioning, clarifying, and predicting, where the teacher is able to do all these skills, and through their instruction and their process of performing the skill, students are able to reciprocate and perform the same task that an educator did for that. The second aspect of knowledge through social interactions is collaborative learning, where the students have different levels of learning, but we take this the different levels of learning and the students are able to collaborate. This example could be a student that's really advanced in a certain skill and another student that is not advanced in a certain area, and how they both are in the same class. That is an example of their zone of proximal development because, for example, say we have a bunch of 5th graders and they're learning how to do math, and through their experiences, how one has previous experience with math or is a little bit more advanced in math, they're able to assist another student who is less advanced, and that in turn creates the knowledge of through social interaction, specifically with collaborative learning, so both the students are able to learn the same math. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to my little spiel about all these learning theories. If you have any questions, hopefully I can answer them at a later time. Thank you again for watching. Goodbye.